Welcome back to Monday Recaps. I don't have a cool, clever name for it, so that's what my brain decided upon. Just want to give a quick shout out to Geno Smith. All he's got to do to make you a winner. We're all perennial losers at this point. No one's 4-0. If anyone tells you they're 4-0 in their fantasy league, they're lying. All right. A lot of you guys are probably 4-0. I'm not 4-0. But you can get yourself an easy dub right here. Geno Smith's got a 0.5 yards tonight, all right, on Monday Night Football. All he's got to do is complete a pass. You got a free square. If you're not yet signed up on Underdog, go do that. Go do yourself a favor. We're running slips. They got Best Ball Resurrection, meaning you can redraft teams right now for the rest of the year, which I'm about to go in hot and heavy towards right after this. I think I'm going to make a full video of it later this week. So go to Underdog. The link to download the app will be right in the description. Go grab this. You'll get this if you use promo code BDGE when you sign up. BDGE. Promo code $10 or more, and they'll hit you with a 100% deposit match. We'll let some of the people flood in here. How's everybody doing? Vincent, how we doing? Looking forward to the show. I'm looking forward to the show as well. It's going to be a lot of yelling. I'm going to try to sit back, relax. Y'all know we got to tuck our shirts in. Don't care where you are. You might be at work. You might be at a funeral, in which case I'd hope you'd have your shirt tucked in already. You might be at the gym. You might be shirtless. I don't care. Tuck it in. Whew. So, as always, these Monday live streams will be game by game. We'll be going through every single game. We'll throw the box scores up on the screen so we can talk about the biggest fantasy implications going forward to make sure that you lion-ass 4-0 teams remain undefeated. How's everybody doing? I am 4-0, boys. Yeah. So they all say. Let's jump into the games. Boy. First and foremost, let's make me big. Let's make me spicy. So we had Thursday Night Football, and I think the biggest storyline here was the return of a lot of injured players. We had on one side of the ball, David Montgomery went pop. That man went crazy. 3 touchdowns on 32 carries. Apparently wasn't really injured. Kind of tried to tell y'all that when he said that he needed a little bit of time to heal, but he's fine. And more, I guess, I don't know if concerning is the right word or not, but more just like the same that we've been kind of yelling about all offseason is like Dan Campbell and the Lions continue to tell y'all what they think about David Montgomery and what that split between him and Gibbs is going to be. They want to use Montgomery as the bruiser. I mean, 32 carries to 8. This shit ain't clear enough for you. Go get your glasses checked, people. The other big news out of this game is Jameson Williams is somehow out of nowhere just eligible to come back next week. Don't really know how that happened. He got suspended. I'm pretty sure he went through his appeal already, and then out of nowhere they're like, nah, you're good to go. Whatever. It brings an interesting, like, exciting piece to this offense. They've kind of lacked explosion. They've made big plays, but, like, it's more so, I feel like, kind of inconsistent, or players, like, doing a lot of the groundwork on their own. They're not necessarily throwing the ball deep too often. They have connected with some Laporta stuff and et cetera, but I think Jameson Williams adds a really, really cool piece to this team. I'm not ready to start him anytime soon. I think what Dan Campbell and the Lions are looking to do is make sure that he's, like a good player first and foremost. Make sure that he fits into the offense. They got to get him up to speed. I mean, we saw him a little bit down the stretch last year, right? We saw him get back into game speed over the last few games in 2022, and it wasn't great, right? He did connect on one deep ball, but for the rest of the games, he was kind of just exercising out there. So, yeah, you could pick up Jameson Williams, obviously, if he's available on your waiver wire, kind of see what comes to fruition with it. Jared Goff is playing really well. He's a player I'd like to have on my team. I'm not going to blow a whole ton of fab on him. He's not going to be a high-volume player. We'll put it that way as well. So if you're in a PPR league, exciting. Probably it's a pretty shitty waiver wire week. We do have a lot of injuries, so we will have to go through each of the injuries that were sustained throughout the games this weekend. Talk about the backups, talk about how serious the injuries are, because we've got a pretty big handful, but I don't think there was a lot of like waiver wire chatter to be had based on the actual injuries that occurred this weekend. So Jameson Williams coming back does kind of jump to the top of the list, or at least like top 3 or 4. And our waiver wire rankings will be live on the membership sites first thing tomorrow. I believe they go live noon Eastern time on Tuesday. Again, you can sign up to be a member, bdge.co. bdge.co will get you the waiver wire rankings every single week. So Demont, Jahmyr Gibbs. So the thing with Jahmyr Gibbs is kind of what we've been saying all along, is they want to use him in a very specific role, and he'll probably have his games, but he's not a must sit, he's not a must start, he's not anything in between. He's just wherever you think you want to rank him going forward, you just kind of expect him to be that player. I mean, at this point, whatever, everyone drafting him is like the RB 12, 13, 14. Yeah, you whiffed, okay? And that's not coming from like a place of hierarchy here, because I've whiffed on plenty of players, but you can just adjust your expectations saying, I took Gibbs as the RB12. He's not even fucking close to being the RB12, and he will not be, because he's never going to score touchdowns. So with that being said, now Gibbs is probably going to be weekly inside the top 30 running backs or so. So if you have better options available, yeah, of course you could sit Jahmyr Gibbs at this point. Dynasty, I'm not really worried about him. I think, you use the 12th overall pick on a player, hopefully we start using him. I don't know. I'm not looking to panic on guys within 3 weeks, 4 weeks of a dynasty roster. On the flip side, Aaron Jones and Christian Watson both made their return, but both were limited, so I'm not really taking too much away from it. Dobbs continues to be a fucking monster. He's he is approaching must-start territory. I benched him in one of my fucking leagues. I put him in my lineup, but I was on the subway, so the sleeper app did not connect. It's the only time I really look at my lineups to set them is right after work. I'm on the subway. I'll go onto them to check my lineups and shit. You'd think I'd do it more often because I'm sitting here talking about fantasy football all day. I just be yapping sometimes. I very rarely actually check my lineups to do shit. And I tried to put him in. I thought I put him in, didn't put him in, and it hurt. So Dobbs is a guy that I'm very excited about having. He was a guy that I was really, really into late August, early September. Drafted him on a lot of best ball teams. So I think with him and Watson, we'll see kind of an interesting dichotomy, I guess. We'll see if Watson reclaims that alpha role. I don't think Dobbs is really built to be an alpha, but he is playing really, 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 really well. So shout out to him. Also, next week starts the bye week. So let's look at some of the players that are on bye. For week 5, we have the Browns, the Chargers, the Seahawks, and the Bucks. And it's a good bye week for some of these players, given, Justin Herbert broke his finger. Pretty much we have Deshaun Watson resting up from his shoulder injury. Mike Evans kind of re-injured his hamstring. So luckily the bye week came at really good times for those guys. Bye weeks just suck altogether, but just be weary of guys that you have on these teams: Browns, Chargers, Seahawks, Bucks. That's a lot of firepower for fantasy. We're talking about Deshaun Watson, Jerome Ford, Amari Cooper, maybe Elijah Moore, but Herbert, Keenan Allen, Eckler should be back after the bye, I believe. Seahawks obviously have fucking 7 players you can throw into your lineup. Bucks with Baker and Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, etc. So just keep that back of mind there. Let's move to the London game. I don't really know what to tell you. This is another thing with Drake London. We'll keep getting sit start questions about does he have to be sat? Is there any way we could play him? I mean, he scored 2 touchdowns now on the year, but again, you just kind of look at him as the wide, if you drafted him as a top 15 or top 17 or whatever wide receiver, he's not that, right? But he is someone you could look at somewhere in the 25 to 30 range, because he'll have good games, but he won't do it consistently. So you rank him that way. And if you have 3 wide receivers that are ranked inside the top 24, if you have a Puka, if you have guys like Christian Kirk, if you have any elite guys, any of the, you know what I mean? If you have a collection of those guys, you can start them over Drake London. So don't feel like you need to keep forcing yourself. We're 4 weeks into the season now. We can kind of recalibrate how we feel about certain players, knowing the outlook. And we pretty fucking clearly know that Desmond Ridder needs to retire at halftime. We need Heineke. I hate Heineke. I really, really despise Heineke. I just don't think he's good. I think he's 3 times as good as Desmond Ridder is. Desmond Ridder makes this team. They went from, I watched week 1, week 2, and I was like, we are must-watch TV, to borderline unwatchable. And I think only our quarterback could have made us do that. We're low-key like a good team other than him. And by low-key, I mean, obviously our offense is good, but our defense is kind of good. Like, it is hard to run against us. We have good pieces in the set, like Jesse Bates and A.J. Terrell are superstars. But Desmond Ridder just cannot. He can't lead a pack of blind people like down the road. He's fucking miserable. Jonnu Smith is somehow like the wide receiver 1, tight end 1 here. Kyle Pitts, listen, at the end of the day, he's probably droppable in redraft. He's definitely he's unstartable for sure. He's unstartable. This is not a hot take. You could definitely get rid of him. Jonnu Smith, do I trust that Jonnu Smith is going to continue to get involved? I mean, listen, at this point, Arthur Smith might actually think that Jonnu Smith is better than Kyle Pitts, or at least where they are in their respective careers. Kyle Pitts still gets like really valuable targets, it just never connects. So until Desmond Ridder is not our quarterback anymore, I have very little faith in Kyle Pitts. Arthur Smith went out and signed Jonnu Smith this offseason, and Arthur Smith, I don't know if he has any allegiance to Kyle Pitts. Like, I don't know if he has any sort of, and Kyle Pitts might just not be the player that we thought he was coming out of Florida. That's also another option there too. He's one of those guys we're going to give the benefit of the doubt for because he's so young and he's just at a position that tends to develop over a long period of time. But like at some point, we need to look at ourselves in the mirror as a franchise and realize we took a tight end at fucking number 4 overall. Makes me sick. On the flip side, Christian Kirk is back to doing Christian Kirk things. So if you had him week 1, you panicked a little bit, you're good to go. Calvin Ridley's been kind of disappointing, man. I don't really know what to make of him. Week 1 was just so dynamite, and he did beat broken coverage in this one, so he ended up scoring like that 30-yard touchdown. But other than that, he was absolutely locked up. Could be a product of A.J. Terrell, but when you have a guy like Calvin Ridley that you expect to be like an alpha wide receiver 1, you still should be able to break out and make plays outside of, kind of like broken coverage there. I will say for ETN, 20 for 55, also caught 3 balls. Like on the surface, yeah, bad game, but 23 touches, man. 23 touches. I'm telling you, the Falcons defense is just a little bit better than we're giving credit for, I think. I think we're a very like stout run defense. And once we actually get a piece in place at quarterback, like we'll be a very well-rounded team. So I wouldn't like overly look into Travis Etienne's struggle there. I think he's probably a buy low candidate at this point. Ingram has been really, really solid all year, so I don't know. That's it. Fucking disappointing game. Make me sick. Dolphins, Bills. This, you know what? I want to do, I really want to do a new like section of this game-by-game recap podcast or video that I call it the podcast theory, or the podcast, I guess the podcast theory. There every week there seems to be like 4 or 5 really, really strong narratives that tend to be present throughout the week. And like and if you listen to a bunch of different podcasts, like they all end up recycling the same thing and the same takes over and over again. And almost every time where there's like 5 strong narratives, they always end up flopping. It's like they never hit. It's like 1 out of 5 ends up being a consistent piece of what actually happens in the narrative of the upcoming week. For this week, it was Miami. They're basically unstoppable, right? Like there's no way you could slow down the offense. And not that I'm not guilty of it, but towards the end of the week, I don't know if anyone else felt this, but it kind of felt like the Bills were going to have their number in this one. They've always just like played them tough, and their defense is really, really, really good. And as we go through the rest of the games, I can't think of what the other ones were off the top of my head. But the narratives seem to never fucking hit. I want to call it the podcast theory and talk about right before the games actually kick off, like the 5 most popular narratives of the week and why they're probably going to flop. This felt like one of them. Tua played fine. I think the biggest takeaway here is that we've been saying Devon Achane's name wrong the entire summer. So it's Achane. Devon Achane. Is it Devin now? I think it's Devon still. Devon Achane. That sounds so weird. That feels so weird. Can I just call him Achane? You guys not get upset with me? Can we just do that? Come on. Either way, 8 for 101, 2 touchdowns. Raheem Mostert lost 2 fumbles. Here's the way I'm looking at it. I still am super fine starting both guys. I think both of them are going to have major roles in this offense. This just happened to be an Achane game. He ripped off a 55-yard run. You could see how just explosive he is. My worry was after last week, not that like Raheem Mostert wouldn't be a starter, not that Raheem Mostert wouldn't be involved. He's really involved in the passing game, continues to see like 5 targets a game. It's when they get to the red zone, though, they love using Achane. I just can't take myself seriously saying that over and over again after calling him a different name for 6 months. I'm calling him Achane. Fuck it. Devon Achane. In the red zone, they use him so often. They're not, at this point, they are not like a typical red zone, like bruiser type, let me get to the 5-yard line and use a dude who's 220 pounds. They use creative, swift, explosive playmakers, and Achane is that for them. Next week, we can go back and Raheem Mostert might score 2 touchdowns. I still think Mostert's probably like the goal line back. They're going to split touches and carries when they're inside the red zone. So, no, Mostert is not just like faded into nothing. I think both of them are probably top 20 fantasy options going forward. And if I have both of them, I'd be okay starting both of them. Let's look at the schedule for Miami going forward right now. Next week, they play the Giants. They play the Panthers. Like, you could start both of those guys against both of those teams for sure. And by that time, we'll know a lot more to make a better decision against the Eagles and then the Patriots. But you could start them against the Chiefs and the Raiders. And, like, there are a lot of – actually, they got a pretty tough schedule going forward. But the next 2, you could definitely start both Achane and Mostert against the New York Giants. So that will probably be the most pressing question on a lot of people's minds. Are we panicking about Jalen Waddle? I mean, listen, like Tyreek Hill went 3 for 58. I just think the Bills had their number in this game. There's not much to take away. Waddle is still an unbelievably explosive young playmaker who set the rookie record with 104 catches 2 years ago. Had a monster year last year. He is a phenomenal player, and he will he'll have the Giants number. He'll bounce back next week. I got no problem with it. Buffalo. So Buffalo and Josh Allen are just popping on every level. I think one of the most underrated like storylines of this year as it relates to Buffalo is just how good and subtle their run game has been. Their run game has been extremely successful. Their run game has been really efficient, and what it's done is it has not forced Josh Allen to feel like he needs to run the ball all the time. That's what their run game, the combination of James Cook, right? He had a pretty shitty game this one, 12 for 29, did end up scoring a touchdown. And now I know everyone's like, oh my God, he got a goal line carry. It's like, okay, he got 1 goal line carry through 4 games. Let's not act like the 1 goal line carry he got in this game means that now he's the goal line back. It's going to be back to normal last week. But Latavius Murray, he's been running really, really, really well. He's been really efficient for the team. Damian Harris, it's just taken a lot off of Josh Allen's plate. And I was looking at the rushing numbers. So through 4 games, Josh Allen has 16 carries. Okay? He has 16 carries through 4 games. His high carry total is 6. If you look back at last year, through 4 games, Josh Allen had 31 carries. So you're talking about nearly double. Up to this point, he had 2 separate games of double-digit carries. That must feel fucking phenomenal to be able to turn around, hand the ball off to a running back not named Devin Singletary that's going to actually do something with the ball, that can make explosive plays, that can get out into the open and make dudes miss. So Singletary was like a volume guy that just racked up numbers but never actually made the offense better. Their combination of running backs right now has taken so much pressure off Josh Allen and the passing game. He doesn't always feel the need. Like a lot of the times now they're 2nd and 5 or 2nd and 4 instead of 2nd and 8 or instead of an incomplete pass. You know what I mean? Like it's taken a lot of pressure off and it's made the passing game super successful. And Stephon Diggs is just the absolute GOAT. Broncos, Bears. We won't talk about like the coaching and how this game actually ended up, but Russ is cooking a little bit. I think what we probably got from this game is, I guess, the top waiver wire pickup of the week. Again, it's a really, really gross waiver wire week all around. But again, I'll have a video on it tomorrow on the channel, so subscribe if you're new here. And then our waiver wire rankings, which include fab suggestions, whether or not we'd use the number one waiver wire on it if you play in standard leagues. That will be up on bdge.co, so become a member, and you can join the private Discord channel as well, where we're in there talking ball. So Jaleel McLaughlin. Let us pull up some of his biography information. Jaleel McLaughlin, 5'7", 187 pounds, out of Youngstown State, 23 years old. Now, there was a video I put out right before the regular season started, and it was seven mustache players on your fantasy football team, highlighted by Puka Nacua, which a lot of you guys ended up picking up because of that video, and a lot of you guys reached out to me for it. You know, I get lucky every once in a while, but I appreciate you guys. And that video was targeted around redraft leagues. It was like 7 guys you should be using the last few spots of your roster on. And with that, I also included a dynasty player, and it was Jaleel McLaughlin. And I don't feel smart for doing it. I just was reading between the lines here. They really liked him, and they used him a lot in preseason, and he was explosive, and they talked about him a lot throughout the offseason. And now Javonte Williams went out with a hip injury. So there's a few ways to look at the Javonte Williams hip injury. Apparently it's not serious at all. Apparently it's not significant, and he could be back and play next week. However, with Javonte Williams coming off of the ACL tear from last year, with a less than 100% hip, that puts the knee at a much larger risk for re-injuring it, right? And the workload on that knee becomes a lot more problematic if the hip is at less than 100%. So while a normal player probably has a likelihood much higher than Javonte Williams to play next week, there's a chance that he misses some time based on that. Again, there's a chance that he comes back next week and all this is just me yapping, but there's also a chance that he does miss. You know, their doctors might just be like, listen, we're not a competing team right now. We want you to get healthy. Like, you are the future of our backfield right now. So that's kind of the way I'm looking at it. I think you kind of like weigh that when you are putting fab bids down on McLaughlin. I also think that he outplayed and played more than Samaje Perine, so there's a chance that he just becomes the 2 in this backfield, because I do think he is kind of like a nice complement to Javonte Williams, who is a little bit more of like a bruiser back. So it could be like Javonte Williams is the 1A, McLaughlin is the 1B, and Samaje Perine is just like a breather back for Javonte Williams. So we'll see how that turns out. I would throw a couple dollars down on Samaje Perine, though, too, because he is well-rounded enough that he could like be a compiler volume guy, but you're definitely looking for Jaleel, who is a explosive player, right? He's making big plays. He had an 18-yard catch in this one. He had a 31-yard run in this one. He's good at getting in space, and he's good at making guys miss. So he's probably the top target for me this week, at least at the running back position, from what I could think of off the top of my head, based on the week and based on guys that are probably available in your league. That being said, though, I don't know if I'm going to go much higher than like 7 to 8% on the fab bid there. You know, he does look like the best running back in that backfield right now, given Javonte's health. So maybe you want to go a little bit spicier on it. But again, I'll do my research tonight a little bit more for the waiver wire video tomorrow. But he is kind of leading the short list right now of guys that I like. On the flip side, Justin Fields had his bounce back day. Like, the Denver Broncos defense is just on a level of historic badness that this shouldn't really be a surprise to anybody. This was the one week that you could have felt confident starting Justin Fields. And I think we see Chicago and Washington play on Thursday night. Couldn't have wrote up a game that I want to watch less than that. But so Fields goes for 4 touchdowns. Fields runs for 25 yards. We've still yet to see him really rip off like that vintage Fields running game, right? That made us want to pick him as a top 5 quarterback this year. But DJ Moore continues to get it done, regardless of the shitty situation. 8 for 131, 1 touchdown. Again, he should just be in your lineup every single week. There really hasn't been a reason to take him out. It's looked sloppy. You kind of just want to close your eyes and let them play, and then at the end of the game, look at the box score for DJ Moore. But that's that. Roschon Johnson takes a very, very back there, maybe 3 rows back seat to Khalil Herbert in this one. 18 for 103 on the ground. Also sees 5 targets, gets in through the air, where Roshan just absolutely took a backseat there. So anyone waiting for that breakout to happen is going to have to wait much longer, it feels like. So Justin Fields, it's like, are we back on Justin Fields? I think you should realistically kind of look at Justin Fields the same way after this game as you did before this game. Obviously, it's good to see him rip this off and know that it's still there and capable, and there's good things to build on. But when we look at the Bears' schedule, what do they got? Okay, they actually have a really, really favorable schedule. So if that game made you feel good about Fields, maybe you wait for that Washington game on Thursday night. They're playing on the road. That's a tough matchup, a tough defense overall. Wait for him to fucking splat, and then they play the Vikings, the Raiders, the Chargers, Saints, but the Panthers, the Vikings again. Like, they have Cardinals and Falcons to end things. They have a really, really favorable schedule after they play the Commanders there. So Fields could be a trade target for you if he has another rough outing there for against Washington. Ravens Browns. Here was another narrative of the week, that the Cleveland Browns defense is historically amazing. That the Cleveland Browns defense was unmovable on, and like you couldn't have listened to a podcast that did not mention just how amazing the Browns defense was. And I think they obviously faltered a little bit because Deshaun Watson was out. And the other theme of this week too, I think, was the fact that, like, again, it goes back to the preseason, man. Why the preseason is so important is based on usage. It's not based on performance. Performance in the preseason is such a flash in the pan, especially at the QB position. Kenny Pickett, he rose up draft boards because he looked good on about 4 throws in the preseason. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, people liked him this week because he looked good in the preseason. We never know who they're actually playing against in the preseason. You can be playing against third stringers while you have your starters on the field. Aiden O'Connell also got the start this week. Looked good in the preseason. Sure, he ended up with okay stats and made some plays, but he was not, even watching that game, it was like the Raiders needed Jimmy G. You could just tell, okay? So just another reminder that the preseason is really important because of usage, but not because of performance or statistics. So the Browns badly need Watson back, but they have their bye next week, as I said, so they will get him back, hopefully, because they are a fucking mess on offense without him. The Ravens, Lamar looked really, really good in this one, just willed his team to a victory, had 4 total touchdowns, 2 running and 2 passing. Mark Andrews had his pristine breakout game. But again, this offense, it's I don't know. I really don't know what to make of it, because they just don't do anything I don't know. It's kind of fucking really boring to watch. Lamar is really fun to watch, but everything else just seems stagnant or kind of boring to watch, and everything is line of scrimmage type shit. I don't know. The Ravens are playing great ball, though. They're set up really, really, really well right now in the AFC North, looking at the Browns without Watson, or even with Watson, he doesn't look great. Steelers are fucking tremendously bad. The Bengals look horrible with what's going on with Joe Burrow. So Lamar, Lamar's a stud, obviously. Gus gets a lot of touches, but a lot of empty touches again. Finally caught 2 balls, actually. That was his first regular season catch since the year 2020. Shout out to him. Took it for a whole ass 1 yard. Listen, right now, I think the only startable players on offense are Mark Andrews and then Zay Flowers if you're kind of desperate. He ends up topping the 50-yard mark every time, but he sometimes it's on high volume, sometimes it's on not. He's not really scoring touchdowns, so I don't know. It's a little tough with Zay Flowers. Again, he's not one of those must start or must sit guys. He's kind of just, you throw him into your rankings as wide receiver 35 to 38-ish, and then if you have better options than that, you play them. If not, not. Why did I put the bookmarks away if I had all the teams up there? Bengals Titans. Yeah, so here's what's going on with the Bengals. Well, I can't really tell you that, but they just rely so heavily on Joe Burrow, and Joe Burrow's so clearly less than 100%. Joe Burrow is going to be dealing, as I said last week and the week before, he's going to be dealing with this calf re-injury for quite a while. like deep into October. So I don't know if there are better days ahead. He can't scramble. He can't do play. Like, it limits their offense because you can't run scramble plays. It's also tough to do a lot of play action stuff because you can't roll out on the play action. Like, that also requires you moving a lot. There's just a lot of stuff that the Bengals cannot do right now while Joe Burrow is limited. He's also a good athlete, so a lot of the times when the defense opens up, he's able to scramble for first downs. And now they don't have that threat whatsoever, so they're able to drop back into more coverage. Also, Joe Mixon is just a slug, obviously. It's been that way for quite a while. So right now it's gross. It's really gross. T. Higgins fractured his ribs, so I'm going to imagine he's out for a little while. Actually, fun fact, it's not fun at all. It was the least fun thing of all time. The only bones I've ever broken were my ribs. I fractured my ribs in high school playing baseball. I was in center field, and there was a fucking yabo hit between left and center field, and I went to run to it, and my homie was playing left field, and I dove for it, and he came in from left field, and his knee just popped my rib cage. And I was like, okay. I didn't really feel it at first, but I stood up, and then I couldn't breathe. There was literally no air coming in or out, and I just dropped to my knees. There was nothing. I thought I was dead. I really thought straight up. I was like, oh, God. And yeah, so T. Higgins, I know how you feel, buddy. I don't know if it was less severe than that. I don't know if it was more severe than that, but I can tell you what, that shit was painful as fuck, and the only thing you could do for it is rest. There's no magic trick for it. I'm sure they could like shoot him up on a pain thing, but that shit is going to be bothering him for quite a while if they were, similar to mine. So with him out, I mean, sure, Tyler Boyd is going to get more targets. I'm sure Jamar Chase is going to continue to get like 10 to 14 targets a game. But right now, it's just so hard to trust this. If they can't do it against the Tennessee Titans pass defense, who can they do it against, right? I don't know. At this point, you're definitely starting players over Joe Burrow. I think Jamar Chase you're definitely still starting Jamar Chase. He's probably like a top 15, 18 guy, but he's not who you drafted him as, of course. So, and there will be teams that you could sit him on, right? Because if you ended up going with like Chase at the 2, and then you took 2 more wide receivers at the 2-3 turn, and then you ended up grabbing like a Puka or something like that, you might have 3 wide receivers or 2 wide receivers better than Chase. So he is definitely sittable based on how the offense is playing. But he's definitely like a top 20 guy still. On the flip side, not much to really take away from here. It's just a bounce back game from Tennessee and Derrick Henry, etc. Everyone on Tennessee is droppable except for Henry, realistically. I mean, D-Hop's whatever, but Rams Colts. This was a fun one. This was a really, really fun one. Took it into overtime. Matt Stafford looks great. Puka obviously chewed this fucking defense up as expected. Cooper Kupp maybe returns next week. We don't know that for sure. He returns to practice for sure, but we don't know if he's actually ready for playing the game. I will say, like, let's roll out some scenarios here. If Cooper Kupp plays next week, assuming all the reports are good, assuming that they're saying he's like full go, which probably means he's like 70% go, 75, 80% go, you're starting both of them for sure. We obviously want to see how it plays out. We'll have more information after the first week, but I think this just makes the offense better. You're starting both of them. I'd imagine that Kupp will be, I would rank, let me see who they play against. Play against the Eagles. So not an unbeatable secondary by any means. Then they play the Cardinals after that. So they got a nice little schedule. If I had to guess, I kind of feel like Cooper Kupp's not going to play next week. So obviously Puka's a must start again. But if they both played, and our rankings go up every Tuesday at noon, by the way, the only place to get them again is bdge.co. If you are a member, you can go sign up there, bdge.co. Our rankings for the week, which are updated throughout the entire week, bdge.co. I will be ranking Cooper Kupp most likely as I think I want to see a game, but he'll probably be like the wide receiver, maybe like 12, 13, and then Puka's going to be top 10 again. So I think for the first week back would probably rank Puka ahead of Kupp, and both of them would be like top 15 guys for me. I just want to see how they run together. Obviously, Kupp can blow up week 1, and then you could flip the rankings. But I really don't imagine either of them not being top 15 guys for the rest of the season, just based on how Stafford and this offense are running. And on that note, we get a lot of questions about Kyren Williams trade questions. Here's what I'll say about Kyren Williams, man. Like, McVay, I feel like McVay is very transparent as it relates to the running back situation, and not in terms, like, I know a lot of you guys are like, what do you mean he's transparent? He's always flip-flopping. What I mean by that is that flip-flopping is information for us. When McVay finds a running back that he likes and trusts, he uses them as a workhorse. If he does not like or trust or feel like they're a good running back, he flip-flops between running backs. Cam Akers, Darrell Henderson, and Malcolm Brown. When you had Todd Gurley, it was all Todd Gurley. Right now, Kyren Williams is basically fucking Todd Gurley. Kyren Williams, to me, is not a sell candidate whatsoever. He is getting pass-catching work. He is getting goal line work. He is pass blocking. He is getting the in-between. Like, what about how Sean McVay is using Kyren Williams tells you that he's someone you want to sell? I get it. If you want to just be like, he's small and he's going to get hurt and he can't do it, cool. But I'm trying to ride these types of guys, the ones that are so obviously the workhorse in their offense, for as long as the coach is allowing us to ride them. So McVay seems to rarely trust running backs, but when he does, he lets them rip into eternity. So Kyren, for me, is an every week RB1. On the flip side, Rich had another really, really strong game. They didn't end up winning the game, but another rushing touchdown for him. I believe that's 4 straight games with a rushing touchdown, or I guess he didn't play, but the 3 games with a rushing touchdown. Becomes the first quarterback ever to start his career with 3 straight games with at least 1 rushing touchdown. So Rich is looking like fucking a fantasy monster to come. And I watched what did I watch this morning? Ray G and Ray G on Wake Up. They did a Ray G and Jordan on Wake Up on their YouTube channel repicked a rookie Superflex mock draft. So if they were drafting a Superflex mock draft or a rookie Superflex draft today, where would guys go? And they had A-Rich at the 101, CJ Stroud, I think, at the 2, Bijan at the 3. And I can't really argue against it. I feel like come this upcoming offseason, when startup drafts hit, A-Rich has got to be, like right now, I think people are like really dramatic with like moving players week to week. Like people would have Jalen Hurts at the 103 or the 102 this previous summer, and now I feel like they'll like move him down for no reason. A-Rich is probably a top 5 pick in Dynasty startups at this point, right? Like Mahomes, Josh Allen. I think you go Mahomes, Josh Allen, and then after that, I think you can argue A-Rich in terms of just like Dynasty value all the way up at 103. He should be in the conversation with Hurts. He should be in the conversation with all the guys behind him, right? Herbert and whoever you want to put in there, L. Jackson, T. Law, and whatever it is, Hurts, all those guys, Burrow. So Richardson is he's a cool player, cool little player. Jonathan Taylor, listen, I'm in the same boat as you guys. We're just in wait and see mode on JT. He can return this upcoming week. I have no idea if he's going to return this upcoming week. He could be traded. He could return in fucking 4 weeks. He could just pretend that his ankle still hurts and not play. I really don't know what to tell you. I do know that if he's active, I am certainly playing him and putting him in my lineup. If he's not active, then you play the shit out of Zach Moss, because Zach Moss is getting an absurd number of opportunities. I know he had like a down game in this one, but he's getting that Kyren Williams treatment. So just ride that as long as you can. That's what I'll say. Michael Pittman had a down game. Not too worried about that. I believe Alec Pierce might have got concussed, which could open up more targets for Josh Downs, but Josh Downs just feels like a 3 for 50 guy like every single week. Not much to take away there. What's up, everybody in the chat? We're 40 minutes in. We got almost 1,200 people in here. Love to see it. 1,200 people, 100 thumbs up. You guys ever going to grow up? You guys ever going to grow up and maybe show a little respect? Doesn't feel like it. It don't feel like it. Hit the thumbs up if you're in here. You're chilling. About 1,200 of you. Strong. All right. Let's move to the Bucs and the Saints. Baker keeps ripping, man. 246 and 3 touchdowns. Rachaad White just looks like a guy again. Rachaad White I feel like he's kind of obvious when to play, when not to play. Just like against good teams, he's gonna put you up 70 touchdownless yards. Against bad teams, he could probably run up a score just because he gets a lot of work. Other than that, Mike Evans did re-pull the hamstring injury, but they have a bye coming up, so not really much to take away here until we know more on his status. I don't think it's supposed to be serious, but it's got 2 weeks, so hopefully he's back after that. The Saints look terrible. I'm not even sure why Derek Carr started in this one, but he did, and he averaged 3.4 yards per attempt, which is just abysmal. I think the biggest takeaway here, of course, is Alvin Kamara's return. Alvin Kamara returned and immediately got 24 touches, thanks to 14 targets. So it was clear that Carr was just not throwing the ball anywhere downfield. Alvin Kamara, I heard this stat a few times today. This was by far and away the lowest yardage total for anyone that caught 13 passes in a game, obviously. I think the next lowest yardage total was like 75 yards or something like that. So Alvin Kamara coming back, setting records immediately. You love to see it. He looked fine on the ground, but the volume is obviously the biggest takeaway here. You have 24 touches for Kamara. You have 1 carry for Kendre Miller and 1 target for Kendre Miller. So Kamara is right back into that workhorse role. And I think he will have fantastic days ahead as Carr gets healthier and healthier. So after this game against the Bucs, they play the Patriots, which is not a great matchup, obviously, but they play the Texans, the Jags, the Colts, the Bears, the Vikings, the Falcons. There is no game on this schedule where you should really be scared off of starting Alvin Kamara the rest of the way. Most of the matchups are pretty cake matchups that are either really just bad matchups or bad run defenses, or run defenses that are relatively good, like even the Falcons and the Colts and those and the Lions, but still allow a lot of points to opposing running backs from way of pass catching. So if you're a Kamara owner and you waited this long, you should feel pretty fucking good about having I would say like a high-end RB2 for now. We'll have to see how the offense fluctuates, if they give him enough scoring opportunities down there. Or if you're in a full PPR league, obviously you lucked out with this game and just ended up getting a fucking 20-point performance out of Kamara for absolutely no reason. But just good to see from Kamara first game back. Washington Philly, this was a good game, fun game. Sam Howell was taking like 82 sacks a game, which is crazy. I think we kind of know if there's ever a good defense going against Washington and Sam Howell and this offensive line, just start them in fantasy. They don't even need to hold them to low points because they're going to give you 5 to 9 sacks. It's kind of crazy. B-Rob continues to be by far and away their best running back. He did get into the end zone for a touchdown, but this is a really tough team to run against. The Philadelphia Eagles front seven is just fucking ferocious. Terry McLaurin kind of 8 for 86. He seems like he's kind of rounding back into form after that. I think he was dealing with was it a hamstring or a turf toe? I think it was a turf toe from the preseason, and now he's finally kind of good to go. Jahan Dotson has just been so disappointing. Feels just a lot like Elijah Moore, where it's great underlying metrics, 9 targets in this one, got into the end zone, kind of shoddy, but he's just kind of unstartable at this point. I had to start him in a league where I had Deshaun Watson as my super flex, and I did not have a backup option at QB, so I had to throw Dotson in there, and he ended up I don't know, what did he end up with, 11 points or something like that, 12 points because of the touchdown, but I don't know. He's pretty much unstartable at this point. Can you drop him? Yeah, you probably can drop him, but I'd almost look at him as one of those rookies you pick, right? First round rookie you pick, and you're like, oh, I drafted him for the second half of the year breakout. That's what I'm kind of holding out hope for is Dotson getting more involved in the offense and better schedule ahead because you play the Bills and the Eagles. That's tough, but they get the Bears, Falcons, Giants, Eagles again, Patriots, Seahawks, Giants. The schedule's relatively friendly going forward, so hopefully better days ahead, but I don't really blame anyone for dropping Dotson if they really need to. On the flip side, DeAndre Swift just continues to be the RB1 here, and I put out a video a week ago or so that DeAndre Swift going forward is definitely a top 12 fantasy running back for me. Just his involvement in a great offense behind a great O-line. Vikings and the Panthers, this is just some shit, man. The Vikings, 1-3, not sitting pretty, but they get the win over the Carolina Panthers. Cam Akers' first game action, 5 for 40 on the ground, so he looked good. They said they were going to ride the hot hand. Alexander Madison had another good game. They had such a nice slate of run defense schedules that Madison was obviously only going to go up from anywhere, but I think it's clear that they see Cam Akers as a viable RB2 in this offense, and he could obviously at any point become the RB1 here. I don't think there's ever really a world. I mean, maybe. I don't know. But I think they're comfortable with Madison in games where they're playing shitty defenses and they know that he can put up performances like this. But this was his lowest snap percentage. This was his lowest rushing like percentage in terms of sharing the backfield with other people. So we'll see. We'll keep a close eye on how that plays itself out. But this offense is just so condensed right now, as you can see. It's Jefferson, Hawkinson, and that's really it. Yeah, so I would hold on to both guys, Akers and Madison, just to see how it plays out. On the flip side, the Panthers, Miles Sanders was clearly less than 100%. I'm surprised they even let him play. He ended up having 16 touches for like fucking 30 yards. It's pretty disgusting. Adam Thielen is balling, bro. I don't know what to say. Adam Thielen is like that dude in this offense right now. Every quarterback just trusts the shit out of him. He keeps balling in PPR league, so he's pretty much a must-start right now. Pretty much. Terrace Marshall, is that back-to-back big games for him? Or am I lying? Is this his first game back? Well, 8 targets, 8 for 35. So he's got 6, 8, and 10 targets. He's being targeted a lot. He actually played pretty well down the stretch last year. But like him and DJ Chark just feel like, I guess they are monopolizing each other. It's not great. Steelers-Texans. Texans just routed the Steelers. Kenny Pickett sprained his MCL, I believe. So what I have heard is it's likely a multi-week, somewhere in like the 2 to 4 week range. He's definitely going to miss some time. Trubisky will step in as his QB. All I could say is I'm sorry to Steelers fans. Like I'm just sorry, you know? Like what else is there to say? Pickett stinks. Trubisky is like, he's maybe a downgrade. I don't know, but we just know that he stinks as well. So this offense will not be fun to watch. Deontay Johnson maybe back next week, the week after that, something like that. Doesn't matter. No one else really is even like startable on this team right now. Literally nobody is startable. On the flip side, there are so many startable players here. Who would have thought we'd be saying that shit? Who would have thought we'd be saying there are so many startable players on the Houston Texans offense? CJ Stroud is just darting up defenses. CJ Stroud looks so good. 306 yards, 2 more touchdowns. Dameon Pierce, 24 carries in this one. Caught a ball for 27 yards. Should have had a touchdown. Didn't get the touchdown. But good to see a nice bounce-back game, again, especially with limited offensive linemen available. They're still super banged up on the O-line, but great outing to see. Like, you could see that with a comparable quarterback. Like, the offense is opening up. Nico Collins is a fucking animal. This was another one of those, like, podcast theory sections I wanted to talk about where, like, everyone went so far in on Tank Dell and just kind of forgot about Nico Collins, even though Collins had so many blow-up games before that. It felt like the comeback game for Collins felt relatively obvious. So Collins is an every week starter. Tank Dell does not mean you don't start him, but again, you probably rank him based on the matchups. Let's see. They play the Falcons. So AJ Terrell and Nico Collins should go at it. They play the Saints, tough, Panthers, but so a mixed match of some tough but relatively easy matchups after that. I think Tank Dell is still like a top 40 wide receiver that I'd like to get into my lineup because he has the capability of having those like 7 for 150 in a touchdown game. So Nico Collins is definitely a must-start. Dameon Pierce is probably still, just because he's not getting a lot of scores, like a low-end RB2, but definitely startable, and it's good to see a bigger game out of him. Raiders Chargers. Another one, again, like Aiden O'Connell, like, saved his day with the rushing touchdown fantasy-wise, but clearly there's a reason that these backups are backups. Took 7 sacks in this one. Khalil Mack had fucking 6 sacks, out of control. Jacobs had a really nice bounce-back day. 17 for 58 on the ground and a touchdown. 8 for 81 through the air. They are just peppering Jacobs and Devontae Adams. Hopefully Jimmy G is back next week. I actually don't hate this offense when Jimmy G is under center. What else? Devontae Adams left for a second, came back in the game. He was fine. The Chargers, Justin Herbert broke his finger. But again, they have their bye next week, so hopefully he'll be fine going forward. It's on his non-throwing hand as well, so if anything, it's just kind of like a ball security, ball grip issue. But he came back in the game after it happened, so shout out to him, gained some respect this week. Big takeaways, hopefully Austin Eckler's got to be back after next week. Eckler's got to be back after next week's bye. Please, God. Receivers. So Quentin Johnson it's not looking good out there. For people that took him early in the rookie drafts if you used the 107 on him or something, if you took him over any of the first round rookie wide receivers at this point. Not feeling great about it. Joshua Palmer, 8 targets, actually led the team, 3 for 77. Realistically, he had an awful day, had some drops. It was 4th and 1 at the end of the game, and Herbert threw a fucking dime to end the game. It was the dagger, 51-yard catch down the sideline. Palmer brought it in. Without that play, had they just gone with a sneak or punted it or something like that, Palmer has an abysmal day. That's what's going to happen with this offense, I think, on some days. Keenan Allen, I think there's some credence to what I said last week. I don't know if it was this stream or maybe it was a waiver wire video, but one of the Chargers beat reporters came on to the Athletic podcast last week after the Mike Williams injury and said, I actually feel like Keenan might struggle a bit more without Mike Williams on the field because there will be an unbelievable amount of defensive attention on him. And I think that's what we saw in this one. So Keenan Allen did escape with a touchdown, but 3 for 32. They'll be able to hopefully get right after the bye, have Eckler back at full strength, and that will be their passing game for the most part. I'm assuming it will be Allen, Eckler, and then a mixture of maybe some games from Quentin Johnson, maybe some games from Josh Palmer. But right now, I think both of those guys are. Well, I would play Palmer over Johnson for the time being, but Palmer is really just like a wide receiver 4 at best, and you probably have multiple options to play over him. Patriots, Cowboys, I mean, there is just nothing really to take away from the Patriots. They look terrible. They benched Mac Jones. They said they didn't bench him. They said that there was just nothing left to play for, so we're just going to sit him. We'll see what happens next week. I do believe they pretty much named Mac Jones already the starter again, but it's gross out there. Ramondre Stevenson is becoming dangerously close to, like, very sittable. Very sittable. They're not making explosive plays. Their offensive line is not playing well. They're not targeting their running backs in the passing game consistently. The Cowboys just chewed them up at every level. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The D-line was breakfast. The linebackers were lunch. The safeties were dinner. That was it. It was a fucking 5-course meal here. Can't start anybody in the passing game. Hunter Henry's been like the one consistent, and I guess in a position like the tight end where nobody's consistent. He's not a terrible start, but I can't imagine getting excited about him. The Cowboys. So maybe we need to have a conversation about Tony Pollard. Maybe. I mean, if they keep blowing teams out, they don't necessarily need to use him. He's not scoring. Obviously, you just keep putting him into your lineup, but that's for another time. Let's see. Jake Ferguson. Hell yeah. My fucking guy. Loved him. Will have his games. Will not have his games. I don't know. There's not really any takeaways from this game, to be honest. Cardinals, Niners. You thought I was going to yell about Michael Wilson, didn't you? That's what you thought? You did. I'm looking right at you. Michael Wilson, he's the GOAT. Simply clear to me. He's the GOAT. I actually think was my bold prediction video, I think, did I name Mike Wilson as a top 3 or 5 rookie fantasy wide receiver? I think I did. And not that he's been, off to a scorching hot start, but this game alone might fucking throw him up there. Zay Flowers has been good. Obviously, Puka is the one, but, he's probably not that far behind. Let's look at some of the rookie fantasy wide receivers. So we have Puka. Tank Dell. Okay, forgot about him. It's wide receiver 2, rookie. And Michael fucking Wilson. Let's go! What the fuck is up? If you didn't know, you saw yesterday. Michael Wilson's a beast. The only thing I thought was going to hold him down was the quarterback play, but Josh Dobbs is out here. Josh Dobbs is really out here. I like that dude. And Hollywood Brown's playing really, really well, too. He has surprised me. I'm not going to lie. I was all in on the fate of Hollywood Brown, but, he's been a player, man. He's been a dude that you can consistently rely on. He's getting absolutely peppered with targets, and he's their clear one, and he's acting like the alpha. Now, let me say, with Michael Wilson, I love the dude. I own him in 70% of my best ball drafts, so love the fact that this happened. This is, I'm not ready to start him anywhere yet, right? Because he's been relatively consistent. I think actually He was the leading receiver for the last 2 weeks prior to this as well. He's not getting enough volume, though, for me to get like really excited about him. He's for sure someone that I want to stash, that I feel like the second half of the year can really put something together. But right now, you don't like chase touchdowns and put a guy into your starting lineup because of that. He's a guy that you definitely want to own. He's going to be high on my waiver wire rankings this week, but more so because the waiver wire options this week are shitty. That's why. Y'all know I like Michael Wilson. No, I don't know if there's anyone higher on Michael Wilson than me all summer. And if you watched him play yesterday, like, you could see why. He is big. He's got the size. He's a great route runner. There's no reason he should be able to separate like he can at that size, but he can. That being said, though, like, next week, will he go 3 for 40? Probably. So, hard to get overly excited about him, but he is still the 2 here. He is the 2. He's running 75% of the routes. So those are the signs that we're looking for. Those are the signs we saw all preseason. He was running as the 2 next to Marquise Brown. And that's why we were excited about him. Not because he looked great during the preseason, because honestly, he didn't really make a lot of plays, but because he was running all the routes. And then Josh Dobbs has surprised us and just played better than any of us could have humanly fucking imagined. And when stuff like that happens, other players benefit from it. All right. So on the flip side, we have Brock Purdy continues to do fucking amazing. Christian McCaffrey continues to do amazing. Brandon Ayuk continues to be the alpha here. He is the absolute GOAT. I got Ayuk as like my 6th round pick in a dynasty startup this offseason. I don't know how many dynasty wide receivers I want over Ayuk. I'm not going to lie to you. Like, he's not in that like Jamar, CeeDee Lamb tier, but he ain't fucking far off, man. Ayuk is still young. Ayuk is still, how old is he? 25? He's 25, man. He's 20 fucking 5. CeeDee Lamb's 24. I'm just saying. Ayuk is improved as just a player as much as anyone in the NFL at the wide receiver position, man. He is that dude. When he's healthy and on the field, like, he missed a couple games, banged up, whatever, but when he's on the field, he is the one. Brock Purdy, 20 for 21. Holy fuck. What the hell? 13.5 yards per attempt. Bro, I knew he had a good game, but holy shit. Brother. My brother in Christ. Oh my goodness. All right, well, it was all Ayuk. It was all C-Mac. Holy shit. Kittle, man. I made quite possibly the most horrid trade ever in a dynasty league like a few weeks ago. It's a super flex league. I traded Jared Goff for Kittle in a non-tight end premium, just half PPR. I did get a 2nd and 3rd in return, so I got some draft cap, but like, I thought George Kittle was going to make me, my team's doing well in that league. I think I'm 3-0, and if Tyler Lockett scores 14, 15 points tonight, I'm 4-0 and in first place. So I'm going for like a win-now team because I have C-Mac and Eckler and Tyreek Hill and a bunch of good players. But I traded, like, Jared Goff is a really nice dynasty superflex player. I traded thinking George Kittle would be like the guy that puts me over the edge in my starting lineup, because I had, who's my starting tight end? Maybe Njoku or something, and he's been fucking balls. So I was like, give me like a real concrete starter that I can put into my lineup and not think twice about. And I actually have Zach Ertz on that team. I totally forgot. I haven't started him once this year. I don't know why. In my mind, I was just like, oh, it's Zach Ertz. Like, I'll never start him, and I should be starting him over Kittle, probably. So that's not been a good time for me. Let's move on to the Sunday night game where the Chiefs fucked my cover up. Had them -8.5. Mahomes just wanted to slide and then fucking give one of these. You know what might be my favorite thing in all of sports? Just after every single play, the camera zooming into Patrick Mahomes and him just going like this. Like, who is he doing that to? What is he doing? Like, he just has like a twitch where he's like calling his guys to the line. It's so weird. I don't know. It's like one of my favorite things in sports for absolutely no reason. Mahomes struggled a little bit. He had some errant throws that like are not normal Mahomes things. Isaiah Pacheco, I had a feeling he was going to have a big fucking pop-off game. Should have taken him a deal or no deal. Didn't do it like an asshole. But he went crazy. And I think I've been saying, actually, in like the trade target videos and a few other videos that Pacheco's been like a buy low guy for me for sure. It's only a matter of time before he took the backfield back over because he was dealing with injuries beginning of the year. Finally had his like explosion game. And I think this will be like the norm going forward where Pacheco is getting not 20 carries, but 20 carries relative to Clyde's 3, Jarek's 3. So you're talking about, 70% of the carries in his back. I think that's what's normal here. On the flip side, Zach Wilson, actually played okay. Yeah, but, this is not going to last. He'll have a bad game next week, and then everyone's like, it's so fucking nauseating watching the Jets on primetime because I feel like the whole broadcast is just like, yay, look at all the Jets just rallying behind Zach Wilson. It's like they're treating him like a fucking 6-year-old. Brother, you were the number 2 pick in the NFL draft, and you stink. Get over it. I'm tired of hearing the narratives of Garrett Wilson went up to him and tapped him in the back. They're back as a team. No, dude. Just fucking go trade for a QB. Let Trevor Siemian play or something like that. I get it. He had one really nice drive last night. He had a great drive last night. Who cares? It's one drive. How many drives has he had this year? Fucking 40? It was one good drive? I don't give a shit. The backfield is a mess. I genuinely don't know if I can name a player. It's so funny how, obsessed people in fantasy were with the Dalvin Cook signing. Never forget that I broke that news. People were so enamored by where he was going to sign. And I listened to a lot of, podcasts, one in particular from The Athletic that they had, a former the former GM for the Steelers. And he kept talking about how, I love his stuff. And I think, most of the guys on those podcasts are really, really smart and they know football really, really well. But he kept talking about how, why would the Colts sign Jonathan Taylor to a big contract when they can go get, Dalvin Cook for half the price? And I feel like to anyone that has followed fantasy whatsoever, you kind of knew that Dalvin Cook was on the cooked trajectory. But this dude might actually, based on all of the, chatter around Dalvin Cook, he might be, pound for pound, just the least impactful player to a team relative to what happened this summer in the entire NFL. This dude does nothing. He is literally just getting the ball put into his stomach and doing not a single thing with it. He is useless. And, yeah, you could absolutely drop him. I think you could have dropped him weeks ago. Breece Hall, you're still holding on to. You just have to imagine they keep watching him rip off big plays. I cannot believe he didn't take that to the house. I can't believe he got tackled by the safety on that run. But you have to think over the second half of the year, they get this offense together in some way, shape, or form with a new quarterback that's more stable than Zach Wilson, that can sustain drives, and Breece Hall starts to get 15 to 20 touches a game. You just have to imagine that happens. So I think you're kind of left with Breece Hall right now. I'm not selling Breece Hall. I'm either holding on or I'm buying Breece Hall. Better days have to be ahead. He just looks too good for it not to happen. And I mean, this is what we expected, right? With Javonte, me in particular, I was completely off of Javonte Williams because I get it. Again, this is why the preseason matters. People get hyped up about his production during the preseason, but it didn't matter. It didn't matter. The science tells you he's 8 months removed from a massive ACL tear. He's lacked any explosion. Now he injured his hip. It just felt like it was so obvious not to draft a dude like Javonte Williams this summer. People went ahead and did it. With Breece Hall, I was a lot more optimistic, but at the same time, the sentiment was, hey, he's going to be good over the second half of the year, not the first half of the year. They bring in Dalvin Cook to lighten his workload. And that's what they're doing. They're forcing it to the detriment of the team, obviously, but they continue to split the carries very fucking evenly here. And it will take some time for Breece Hall to, again, just reclaim that. But it felt kind of obvious that the storyline was going to be like that. And it could be very different if Aaron Rodgers was under center, but who knows? Garrett Wilson, again, as I've said, the way to look at a guy like Garrett Wilson in this offense is look at Terry McLaurin. Ultra fucking talented dude, but what are you going to do when you have wild-ass quarterback throws going your way all the time? So just treat him like you've treated Terry McLaurin over the last 2 years. All right. Those are all the games. Let's jump into Underdog to make some picks for tonight's game because I gave you guys the free square already. So we had the free square. If you're new to the stream or if you are new on Underdog overall right now for all new customers that use our code BDGE, if you go to underdogfantasy.com, the link is right down below in the description. It'll help you sign up. It'll take you right to the App Store immediately. If it's your first time on there and you deposit, use promo code BDGE, and they're going to double whatever you put down on your account. So if you deposit 10, they'll have 20 for you. If you deposit 20, they'll have 40, all the way up to, I believe, $500 now, which is fucking dope. But you will also see a free square for tonight's game. Geno Smith over 0.5 total yards. Who can we pair this with? I kind of think it's cool that they now offer like higher odds ones, right? Like obviously it shouldn't be in favor of Darren Waller scoring a touchdown, so they put it at a 1.75x. Let's see, 49.5 receiving yards. You know what else is a really cool team? A really cool tool on the 33rd team website. If you go to the Edge, they have all these really, really unique filters, first of all, but they also, from a very, very baseline, like, okay, fantasy points allowed to different teams, you can look at versus quarterback, versus running back, versus wide receiver, versus tight end. As you can see, the Broncos are just the single most fantasy points allowed to quarterbacks, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and second most to tight ends. So this might be something where you look at it and say, like, hey, do I expect a big game out of Darren Waller playing against the Seahawks? And as you could see, the Seahawks are a little bit better than average, 20th in terms of fantasy points allowed. And for teams like that kind of sit in the middle here, I don't really look too deep into it. From like the 10 to 20 range, it's kind of just like, did you have a bad game, one game that will influence the statistics a lot, but you want to look at the end of the spectrum. It's like these guys are probably actually really, really good against the position, so you're probably fading that. These guys are probably really, really bad against the position, so you're probably looking to attack that. And that's kind of how I look at like fantasy points allowed kind of thing. Kayvon Thibodeau, nope. He looks terrible. Geno, I kind of like 1.5 passing touchdowns. It's probably that low because Kenneth Walker has been scoring so many touchdowns on the goal line. What's his rushing doing? -4, 6, 13.5 rushing yards. We're going to bookmark this one. Geno, 1.5 passing touchdowns. I kind of like the over there. They got Kenneth at 0.5. I like the over there too. What's he been doing in the receiving game? Not much, right? I feel like DJ Dallas is playing too much. 3 catches, 4 catches, 1 catch. They got about 2 receptions. I feel better if that was 1.5. DK. I don't hate DK's been fucking going bonkers lately, and they have his touchdown line at 1.25x. I actually might take that. Lockett, 14 yards after the catch. I might take the lower simply because he just catches the ball and falls down. JSN, how the mighty have fallen. Daniel Jones, 34.5 rushing yards. He didn't get it last week, which felt like the first time in quite a while. Wow. He really had fucking 5 rushing yards last week. I kind of feel like he bounces back a little bit with the rushing yardage. I might take the over on his rushing yardage here. Let's see how the Seahawks have fared against rushing QBs. They have allowed not much. Not much. Rushing attempts, that can't be right. Just 5 rushing attempts for 22 yards. But they allow a shitload of yards. They've allowed a decent amount of fantasy points here, but they've obviously only played 3 games. They also don't have all these updated for all of the teams yet. So keep that in mind as well. I think I tentatively like the over there. Darius Slayton, 40 receiving yards, feels a little high. That feels a little high. I'm going to take the lower here. Actually, let's just take the lower here. Give us an extra yard because I don't think he's getting any rushing attempts. We're going to take this slip right here. We're going to take this slip. We're going to pair it with the 0.5 yard you get for Geno Smith. So actually, you can only take one Geno slip. So you could take the Geno and then one other giant with it. So we're going to throw a 50 spot down for 300. We're going to confirm it. We're going to share our picks with the Discord. Make sure you guys are in the Discord. Free to join, obviously. Link down below. Have a day. Have a day, Discord. Let's just throw it into Fantasy Talk. Fuck it. Boom. Big Dog Chat. Those are for the members. Members only. Run it. All right. Well, I believe that will conclude this week's live stream. Every single Monday, we go live recapping the games somewhere between 1 and 2 p.m. Eastern time, depending on how many coffees I want to have in the morning. I like to relax a little bit before I get on here and yell and black out for a while. So thank you for joining me on this Monday. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe. Turn notifications on because we do go live a lot throughout the week, especially during in-season. We do it way more now than in the summer. So to be notified when we go live, you got to turn the notifications on. But most importantly, become a Big Dog member, bdge.co. You'll get our waiver wire rankings. You'll get our regular rankings for the week for start decisions. You'll get access to our private Q and Assault, which is a private live stream that I do every Saturday on here answering your questions. And you'll get access to the private Discord, which you just saw me drop into the Big Dog chat. All right. I love you. Drop your underdog slips in the Discord as well. We out of here. Girl.